Faders of the Lost Art.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Faders of the Lost Art, episode number 18. Welcome to lucky number 18. Yeah, we are going down, flying on the road.
We're official.
It's a nighttime episode.
We're super, and it's a nighttime episode. You can pull out your smokes, your drinks, whatever you got on your side tables. Light them up if you got them.
Damn, I should have known, man.
But yeah, welcome to episode 18. Let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Avid, of course, Arturia, Cloud Mics, Atmos Studio. Let's shout out Ken's studio, killing the game. He's been killing it over there.
Fire.
Young Fareed, Criteria, holding it down in Miami.
Yeah.
And you know what? Let's introduce our co-host, Dave Pensato, Bob Horn, Fareed Salama, and Ken MF Lewis, the man.
And what's your name?
I'm Nico Hamui. Thank you for that intro, Bob. And no, I'm blessed to be with Audio Royalty and Greatness. This is amazing. Y'all are the greatest. Without further ado, let's give a sponsor shout out to Fix Audio. We love Fix Audio, Doubler, Flanger, all that. Go check it out, Chorus. But also
consoles, equalizers,
trees, monitor channels, monitor sections, like all the above. This guy's absolutely out of this world. If some of you guys may not know, he's kind of the creator of the API 550 EQ. Let's introduce the legendary Paul Wolff.
Hey, legendary.
Yeah, boy.
Now, have you seen that with a new iPhone? When you do this, there's lasers behind you.
What?
Yeah, if you do FaceTime with
that's the upgrade of the 15. I was wondering what the upgrade.
I know
was.
this is like, they used to have upgrades. The upgrades were like, security fix, this and that and the other. Then as soon as Steve Jobs died, it was like 50 new emojis, and I went like, here comes the mouse hole.
I'm sold.
Now we get lasers.
That's all.
Yeah, we got lasers. Has hearts that come out. You do that, and it's like confetti. If you do this, there's a little thumbs up that comes up. It's like, come on, you guys.
I heard something today where iPhone or Apple won't cooperate with the FBI when they're trying to get a hold of someone's iMessages. So we all got to start committing a bunch of crimes.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and skip that one.
And use iMessage.
Everybody commits crimes, then they can't catch all of us.
That's right.
That's a great point.
No, you know what happened with that? What happened was that Apple found out that Facebook was like not just taking your name and stuff, but like drilling in and getting all your information. Every time they would do an update, it would expose all of your phone information and stuff like that, and they were grabbing it. And when they figured it out, they went to Facebook and they said, you guys need to stop this. And Zuckerberg goes, I'm not going to stop that. And they go, okay. And then, update 14 came out. There's a little switch that goes click and it shuts it all off. And they literally lost 40% of their ad revenue like overnight. Wow. And that's why when you do an ad now, it used to be, I could single out engineers, producers, recorders, stuff like that. Now it's like audio.
Right. No.
Wow.
Yeah, so they really, they cooked their own goose on that one. That's what. Then right after that is when they had the layoffs and they had, all that stuff. It was all because the guy, messed with Apple, and Apple is just like, people have an expectation of security, so you have to give it to them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Isn't that kind of renowned where, a lot of the audio world develops for Apple first because it is more stable, more secure, and less kind of likely to be hacked?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's stable. They tend to go down some mouse holes and stuff, and they tend to do the wrong things. And I mean, they've had 3 updates in the last 3 weeks, but for the most part, their stuff is, it's pretty stable. Especially the new operating system running all the old stuff. If you can run Pro Tools in a virtual machine and it works, that's a big accomplishment.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I mean, I also think Apple's also just been a super creative company, so it makes sense that, more creative
And they have
support.
all the money.
What do you guys think about no, scratch that question. Next. Yeah, what's going on with what's everyone been working on? Paul, what you been working on?
Show of hands if everybody wants him to finish that sentence.
I want to know what the question was.
I honestly can't remember. That's why I skipped it.
I love Dave.
Awesome.
That was classic.
No,
It was something about security and I got it. Great question. If you've got a message from one of your providers, be it Google or whatever, that your info's been leaked on the internet, other than changing your passwords, what does anybody have any advice? Like, what can you do to like find your info on the internet, scrub it, whatever it, figure out if you even have been leaked?
You can't find it and scrub it because it's been moved and passed around and sold, and so that part. Yeah, LifeLock is a great thing.
If you want privacy, stay off the fucking internet.
Yeah, LifeLock.
Yeah, don't have a podcast.
No, I use a program on my computer called Clam XAV, and it constantly is looking for stuff. Everything I do, it checks it. It doesn't slow my computer down, and it sweeps my computer every single night, and it blocks everything. I never get anything come up on it, and I've never had anybody seize control of my computer. I had it happen once with a PC, and that's when I went to a Mac, and I have a Mac Studio running. I got a 128, and I've got Parallels running on that, but because that's ARM, you can only use Windows 11 ARM. So I'm running Windows 11 ARM in Parallels on the Mac, and I split it up, and I run all my SolidWorks 3D CAD stuff and all that stuff on the Windows side of it, and I have it set up so anything I click routes through Safari, because Safari is not that great of a browser, but you really can't attack it. It doesn't allow that stuff. That's
love it.
And now that you have issued the challenge, I believe some people are going to throw down. So good luck.
Yeah, well, I also use Blaze too. I use Blaze as a browser that you can't. It doesn't allow things through. I mean, Windows browsers are they'll allow anything through. So you just have to, you just got to stay off the Russian porn sites.
Oh. Amen.
So I've heard.
Jeez. Life's been different ever since.
A whole new world.
Duh.
So I'm working on a new equalizer. I've got a new parametric.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Go on.
Yes. Yes.
In the box?
No, it's a piece of hardware, and it's 4 bands. The top and the bottom band are going to have shelving or peaking, and the shelving I'm doing is more like a 6 dB per octave shelf. It's not like if you want to carve something, you get something that'll carve it. This is one of these things that just like it's so smooth when you boost it. And then the 2 mid bands have a button on it that it's proportional Q. So first of all, one of the relationships in an equalizer, a parametric EQ, is if you look at all the old equalizers, everything, the APIs, the Pultecs, all that stuff, all the LTEC, everything, all the old EQs used, they didn't use it. It was just the way it was. It was proportional Q. And the reason it was proportional Q is because they were using capacitors and inductors. And for a capacitor and an inductor to pass a certain bandwidth, it has to have a specific load on it. If you change the load, the center frequency is going to move. I mean, you're just changing that load. So it's going to move, higher or lower. So what you do when you have an equalizer, if you're boosting it more or cutting it less, you're changing the load on that filter. So you have to compensate for it on the other side of the filter. So when the filter is grounded, okay, it's basically 6 dB up, 6 dB down. But as soon as you decrease the resistance on the top, you got to increase it on the bottom. Once you do that, the equalizer broadens. But that's how you have to center. You got to keep it centered on that frequency. So what happens is if you're the way that like a 550A or a Pultec or any of those, you're flat like this. And when you start to boost, it's like this. And as you boost more, it gets tighter. And that's proportional Q. And you can look at it. You can look at it energy wise. It's interesting because if you drop it down 6 dB and you fill this up with water, as you turn it down like that, it holds the same amount of water. It just gets narrower and deeper.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's how an old equalizer worked, and that's why those old EQs, why everybody says, "Oh, they sound so great." Half of that is the fact that you can't fuck yourself. Okay,
I love that.
Happened, well, the thing is, when George came out with the parametric, the first thing that people did is they were doing these little teeny notches and then boosting it to get that guitar sound, and then you put it on another set of speakers, and all of a sudden, you've got a shit show. And when they go to master, the mastering has different speakers, and all of a sudden there's this like whoo on the guitar, and you can't get rid of it. So what I did, and I did this originally with the Tonelux EQ, is I made a parametric EQ so you could sweep it around, but I made it proportional Q, so there's no Q control on it. You boost it a little bit, it's very broad. As you boost it, it gets tighter, or you cut it, it gets tighter. And so this one is the same way. And what's cool about it is if you do want to notch something out of a tom, it's going to be broad. So there's a button, you press it, and it locks it at a third octave. So now you can notch it and then sweep it around and find that point and pull it out.
And
so it's going to be
it's this EQ.
It's going to be a really nice. EQ.
It's a rack mount?
No, it's
or 500.
500 module.
500.
And the two middle bands, what are the ranges?
Oh, they all overlap. I mean, you can do anything with either one of them. The high band goes up to 22K, and it goes way out. I mean, if you turn the frequency to 22K, it's going to boost light. And the low frequency goes down to 22, but the shelving goes all the way out. So it covers, they all overlap like this,
Sometimes when I'm boosting up there past 20, I bring my dog into the room and I'll boost until she runs away.
Yeah.
And that's just
good.
how I
that's
do
smart.
it.
You boost until your A to D converter chokes.
No, but in all seriousness, are they stepped or
no, it's sweepable?
Sweepable. Okay, nice, nice. Do you ever worry about recallability with that kind of stuff?
I come from the school, and I think Dave will probably agree with this. I come from the school of, if you have to reset it, you probably have something about the mix you didn't like, and you should just redo it.
Yeah, that's it.
And if you want resetability, use Pro Tools. I mean, that's what it's there for. If you want to have that analog sound, I mean, I could do motorized pots, and I could do switches, and I could do all this kind of stuff. But if you want to pay for all that shit, I'll do it. But nobody wants to, And when you're dealing with proportional Q, if your thing is like 2 octaves wide, if you're like 50 hertz this way or 50 hertz this way, nobody's going to hear the difference. That's the point,
Cool. Yeah, I'm just trying to get into the mind of someone building analog and what makes you make these decisions, But it makes a lot of sense.
Just making records. I mean, you just you know how it is you sit there and you archive the things that frustrate you. And when you make stuff, and I've had, I owned API, I owned Tonelux, and now I own Fixed Audio. All 3 consoles have different features on them, and all 3 consoles sound really good. And it's because there's more than just one option on something like that. But I've learned over the years what people want. What do you want to do? Like when I had API, all the little 200 modules that I did, I had them set up. I loaded the pots in such a way that if you put all the pots at noon, it was a nice setting. It was a good setting for the gate, a good setting for the compressor. And I did that because when you're in a panic and someone says, "Hey, put that new EQ on there," you're going like, "Great." you know, because you don't want to ruin the session. So the first thing you do is you go over there and you put everything in the middle and you see how it sounds. And if it doesn't sound good, then you patch around it. And that's the last time you ever go to it. And so what I did is I made sure that if you patched into it, set stuff at noon, that it was a nice starting point. It sounded good. And then you could, and then you tweak it a little bit and you could get right back to work. And so that's what my goal is on all this stuff, you know, make it easy so you don't have to sit there and have somebody teach you how to use it.
Paul, did you ever envision when making all these like 500 modules and stuff and these classic pieces of gear, did you envision like it would be known for drums or for a certain sound? Because I know API has a very fat, big sound. Did you ever like foresee that, or
you don't? You know, I think nowadays manufacturers try to foresee that. They try to make stuff that's cool. Back then, they made stuff that did certain things, and they did
it worked?
They did them correctly, so they sounded good. You know, like a Pultec. You know, nobody said, "Oh man, let's make a tube equalizer and make it really cool." You know, nobody ever did that. Somebody came to him and said, "Hey, we need an equalizer to boost the audio feed coming in from a network, and we need to cut the hum down." And so he comes up with a 2-band EQ, and the guy says, "It'd be great if you could boost the middle to bring the vocals out a little bit." Now it's the -1, and then it goes, "Well, it'd be nice if you could cut narrow but boost wide," and then it's this and that and the other, and that's how those things progressed in those days, you know. And so we find ourselves constantly going back to those things, and I think that's something that the designers nowadays, they try to design things that are cool with the colors and the knobs and the stuff like that, but none of these guys have made a record. None of these guys have done live shows. I mean, I did Woodstock 94 and 99 both. I was stuck in a truck, and I've done Bonnaroo's, I've done broadcasts, I've done live records, I've done studio records. When you do that, you know how everybody here, that thing is you don't have time to dick around and have something not work. And well, if I just knew how to use it, the guy that designed it shouldn't have to sit in the room and say, well, do this and do this and do this. It should be evident on the screen. That's the thing. Noodling and dicking around is not something that any of us are used to doing.
Totally.
Too much. Yeah.
Paul, I'm gonna change the subject, man. Tilt EQ, I'm using the shit out of that thing, and I don't know why. I'm using it on everything, and is there a preamp in there somewhere?
In which?
The Tonelux tilt.
Oh, the tilt. I mean, that's that was originally on the quad hi-fis, and it started out as in the hi-fi world, if you put EQ on things, it's like you're going to go to hell. So this guy said, because everybody, you listen to a record and you don't like the way it sounds, your room is dull or something like that, or it's boomy. So he put the tilt EQ on there. It was 3 dB in each direction, and it just did this and it did this.
Yeah.
And when I put that on the original Tonelux mic pre, one of the things that I do when I go into a studio is I look at all the outboard gear and I look at how everything is set, because that gives you an idea of where people are using things. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that when I'd go visit Pat McMakin over at Sony Tree, he had the first 8 of them, and they were sitting there, and all the tilts were set at 1 o'clock. And I looked down at every one of them, 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And he said, I put it on a piano, and it just shifts the energy up a little bit. It's a little brighter, a little less of this down there, and then it's just like it's right. And I put it on acoustics and acoustic guitar, and it's just that little tip, and kick drum. I might bring the low end up just a little bit, and they're not really doing a lot. You're not shifting the phase and shifting the transients out at all. And in that particular plugin, when we did this, and this was a real interesting lesson about emulating transformers. What we did was I sent a sample out to a couple engineers that had a rotary switch on the panel, and the rotary switch was set up so one was one iteration of the transformer modeling. 2 was 2 iterations. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I said to everybody, compare this against your mic pre and adjust it until you think that it sounds the same as the mic pre. And every one of them came back at 6 or 7. So I went to the guys and I said, look, this is what I was telling you, that your emulation of that transformer based on what you think it is fine, except it's not enough. It has to be more, you know? So they did it, and that's the model in there. Now, if you switch it over to the live version has no transformer modeling in it, and it's trimmed down to the point that it has hardly any latency, and that was designed for in-ear monitors to use on live consoles. And it also has the knee point where you have the center point, which is about 700 hertz. And no, it doesn't make a difference what the center frequency is, because nobody gives a shit, because it doesn't do that much on either side of that center frequency. But what we did was we found that if you used the tilt on stage monitors, that if you did this, you'd get feedback because you're boosting the high end. So we set it up so you could move that hinge point, but the response of the EQ was the same. So now you could do that, but it would bring the gain up, and it wouldn't peak the high end. So you could use it in wedges as well. But it was originally the guy, what started the whole idea behind that was a guy from Bono's front of house guy came up to one time, and he said that he wished that we could do a 8-channel analog version that he could patch in to use in ears, because he's constantly, there's always this, and you get that linear decay of your high end as the night goes on. So what he did is I built him the 8-channel one, and he tried it, and he said one night that as the show would go forward, about every 20 minutes he would just tip it up, half an hour, another half an hour, now it's at 2:30, now it's at 3 o'clock, and like that. The end of the show, he said, Bono came up to him and said, man, the monitors were great, they never changed all night.
Wow.
That's the point. But see, that's why you use it. Now, I've done live shows. I've done live mixes of recorded, live shows before. And 48 channels, I've used 30 of them. I put the tilt on, and it's everything you need for a lot of things. It just you're shifting that energy up a little bit,
Yeah, I used to have 8 of those early Tonelux preamps, and I used the tilt all the time. That's great. Just I had my hi-hats, bottom snare, room mics, overheads, and every one of them, you just tilt it a little bit, and you're that much closer to the finished sound, It was great.
Well, the new input module for the fixed console has a sweepable high pass, sweepable low pass, and the tilt EQ that we call TQ. And it has that on every channel.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to segue from nerding out to more nerding out. But anyways, speaking of U2, did you guys see the U2 Sphere in Las Vegas performance thing?
That had to have been epic.
Yes, that was
insane.
That thing is huge.
There's 167,000 speakers, maybe 164. I actually spoke to somebody who was working over there. They're like, no, I think 160. So still, that's 160 plus thousand speakers in that place.
What?
Yeah,
insane.
And they compensated timeline. They compensated even for the humidity, and the humidity change with that many bodies in the room, etc. Just absolutely insane.
Hey, Dave, can you set a ladder up? Speaker 7,363. It sounds like there's a wire loose on. Can you climb up there and throw that wire around?
I got people for that, man.
Yeah, the infrastructure. Yeah, literally just the infrastructure, like how to trace things down, how to what's the word I'm looking for? Signal flow.
Well, diagnostics, they probably have diagnostics on everything, and there's probably monitoring, because at Vegas is big on monitoring everything as it is. So I'm sure they can look at the status of every speaker, and there's got to be an inner shell. There's got to be an inner shell that they can access the down facing and the out facing LEDs to change it, because there's no way you could put a genie lift or something like that in a place like that.
Yeah, same deal with the lighting. Can you can you just tap on panel number 9762? I think this is blinking a little. Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you got somebody in the audience that's like any of us that's OCD, and you're looking up there and you're seeing this one like light doing this, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm on a mission. I'm climbing up there.
Yeah.
That's what AI is for.
No, it's epic. But apparently, reviews say it was just life-changing. All the footage and stuff looked insane. So looks like we're going to have to make a little field trip, boys.
It looked life-changing on my damn phones. I can't imagine what it was like being there.
Right?
Oh,
the outside when they first turned it on, and then there was the eyeball that was like,
yeah,
That's
like that. It was like,
And I've seen it in real life. It's crazy from the highway. It's like crazy realistic. It's like just as clear as any of the new TVs.
Now there's
Anybody seen it from a plane yet?
Oh God, that's got to be cool.
I saw the eyeball flying in on a plane. It was nuts. It was nuts.
Yes.
Watching the plane go over. No.
That is some Terminator shit right there.
Seriously.
Well, there's a place in Dubai now. They're doing the moon. They're going to do a moon that's got the entire. They can project the entire moon on the moon, and it's going to be bigger than that thing now too. So.
Wow.
Well, when you were working with Slate, did you work on the Raven?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
What do you think about the Raven? I don't know.
Well, there's a fork. Everything you have, every device that's made has a fork in the road. Okay, the Raven can be your mixing surface if you're into that, if you can handle that. Okay,
yeah.
And it's perfect for that, and it does it really well. Especially the new software is just spectacular. Okay, but at the same time, if you want to have a fader in your hands, there's no reason why your guy that has the keyboard and the mouse, your assistant that has the screen, the keyboard and the mouse on the cart that, is next to you, can't have a Raven sitting on that, because when you touch that plugin and it blows up in your face and it's the full size of the plugin and you do this on the knob, all that does is saves you time. And then when you get all the batch commander stuff where he says, hey, can you, he says to the guy, can you bring up the drum faders, and so he just goes like this and goes, and they're up. You can't do that with a mouse unless he has a full controller in front of him. Mm-hmm. So there's two sides. You can use it for everything, or you can use it to just save you time. And it's a valuable for the cost of it, especially. I actually have one on the right of my screen here. I have one for my Slack and for my other stuff. I can just reach over and just touch whatever I want on it. And I have one on my Audio Precision machine back here. And the whole Audio Precision test thing, I just have to touch the button and it goes and it does the test. So it's
Batch Commander.
Yeah, the
was
Batch
very,
Commander is just, that thing is just sick, man. And you can run that on an iPad too. And so if you're going to bounce tracks, you just hit bounce to tape, and you go have dinner, and it does consolidate, labels, and bounces every one right after another.
Yeah, those are stems.
So there's some value in there. If you don't have to use it 100%, you don't have to use it in Steve's vision.
Maybe you could shed some light on this for us, Paul. Certain plugins don't bounce offline. They just don't bounce. You have to record them in real time. I ran into that a couple times while printing a whole album's worth of stems, where there's just certain plugins when you try to bounce offline, they just don't commit. Have you ever ran into that?
Well, I think with the commit thing they have now, there may be some issues, because when you used to do the old style where you had to bounce one track at a time, it did it because it was doing it basically live every time. It would pass every track. But I know that the new one is like that. And I wonder, you would think maybe the software guys wrote it that way, so it doesn't do that, because they don't want you to give that plugin to somebody else. That's, even though it's consolidated in the track, maybe they don't want you to do that.
I was using commit just recently on some sessions, and I was using it to give the producer his stems. We would record some stuff live, 808 live, and at the end he's like, "Yo, can I get the stems? So I do commit, but what I realize it won't. So commit won't have what I have on my master. That won't bounce. But everything else, if there's plugins on that channel, those will commit. If it's going to an aux, you can highlight that aux. That'll commit too. But your master, all the plugins on your master, I don't think those commit. For that, you got to do bounce to disk.
Because that's probably a lot, because you're funneling everything through that.
Right.
So
and that's why it takes longer.
Yeah, you're not just. It's not like the master track. It's the master mix funnel.
Right. But Nico, I never had that issue. I don't know.
There's definitely lines of code that certain manufacturers forget about. For instance, like delay compensation. There's plugin makers that'll have the delay compensation work, but as soon as you put the plugin in bypass, it's not compensating anymore. You know, there's different little quirks where they just forgot certain things or they just didn't bother to write it for that one function. So it could be that there's a line of code that has to be written to be able to commit that one plugin, and they didn't write it, you know?
Right.
I don't know.
That seems
Crazy.
like the most plausible.
Yeah.
Just something that happens. I figured we were getting nerdy enough in here to pull that question out. I've been wondering, but no one's been able to like give me a confident answer on why certain plugins just don't come in. And you might be right. It could be the online bounce version works, and it's just offline bouncing. And I'm not sure about committing, but definitely offline bouncing. Like I'd try to just highlight the main print track and just hit bounce with a certain track soloed or every other track muted, and it just doesn't sound the same. And I'm like, it sounds like it's missing this one plugin. And you A/B the plugin, and it's like, yeah, it definitely sounds like without the plugin.
Well, I would make a list of the plugins, and I would contact the manufacturer and ask them, because they, like Bob said, they may just have either forgotten to put the code in there or they purposely don't put the code in there.
Nico, I think it's just fear of commitment, man.
I think so too.
Get over it.
I think so too. It happens. It happens to the best of us.
Jump in head first, man.
Let's go.
Just go for it.
Nico, I like to record my stuff, and then it gives me another chance to listen to it all the way down, because I'm lazy and don't do it normally. And
I agree 100.
Yeah, I do it. I've been doing it. Well, you know what, you work with me. We always did it that way, mainly because
Print back in.
Well, see, that's the thing, and I never realized that it was an issue until I had to print an entire album's worth of stems. Maybe you can remember a certain album that we did, but it was a lot of stems, and they were very particular stems, and it was maybe 20 stems per song. So of course, any young engineer would look for a workaround and how to make things faster and stuff. So I was bouncing offline, but also checking A/Bing, the print. And it got to a certain point in the mix where I was like, wait a minute, something's off on this print, and I had to trace it down to certain plugins that were not bouncing, so I had to print those longhand, which is fine for a couple, but you don't want to print 20 stems for 15 songs, longhand. That takes a long time.
That's where the batch commander works, is because you just set that up and then you go eat and come back and it's done for you.
I would be so full if I did that with 20 songs.
There's a program called Bounce Butler too.
Yes.
It's a subscription, and it basically does that batch commander but thing. You have to like prep your sessions. You got to do save as, solo each track, and save as bass, kick.
Andrew Steps has one too for what's that? It's another thing like batch commanders. Why is it escaping my mind right now?
Soundflow?
Yeah, Soundflow. Yeah.
I got one. I still have to set it up. I just got one.
If you want to get real nerdy, when you're bouncing stems, don't ever inactivate something that was in while you were bouncing other stems. So if you bounce all your drums, and then for some reason you want to inactivate something that has like 5 plugins. You don't want to do that because your delay compensation will change, and then your files from that point on will be in the wrong place compared to the stems before that.
What?
That
Unbelievable.
is genius. Bro, Bob always has those like
Fucking.
that's why
Bob
his shit
Horn,
sounds so good. His shit
motherfucker.
is so precise. Bob has like the most precise
It
Debbie,
just
Pro
comes from
Tools
So-
information ever.
It
So
comes
do you
from
mute?
Yeah,
You just mute?
just mute it. Because if you inactivate it, when that delay compensation sample number changes, all of your stems move a little bit. So no bueno.
Have you checked this? Are you sure about that?
Yes, I've done it because I did a stupid thing one time where to keep a mental placeholder of one of these gigantic pop songs, I would inactivate whatever I already bounced. So it's like I got the drums done, inactivate them so I know those are done. And then you put all the stems in a session and they're all like, off by little by little. Because the
groove
less
just
and less
doesn't feel right.
compensation. So don't do that.
Dude, that is priceless. Look, most people sync their gear to a clock. Well, most clocks sync their gear to Bob.
I love
That's just how it
that.
goes. So, like,
clocks.
Bob is literally probably one of the most precise engineers I've ever met. He knows that, like,
Yeah.
the K12 thing. That's another like out of this level, out of this world, next level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Bob
do
is
that
the
every
industry
session now.
clock.
And then the just there's something about having plugins inactive still impart sort of a sound. You know how having a plugin in bypass imparts a sound on certain plugins? Well, even if the whole plugin is inactive, it still does something. Obviously, Bob touched on that with the delay compensation, but let's say you have a couple inactive plugins on your mix bus that you have every mix. Taking those off might change the sound of your mix, even though the plugin is inactive. Now, the Pro Tools gurus are going to swear that that doesn't exist, but some of us have that privilege info.
Depends on the electrons.
Hey.
That's true.
Well, the Bob Horn meter comparison, that is an absolute confirmed fact by a bunch of top ears, but the mix is also canceled perfectly. So how do you solve
that's
that?
what's weird. That's what's really weird.
I mean, everybody hears it, but the mix is canceled completely.
Well, here's my take on that. It could be nulling everything except for something at minus 75 dB. So none of us really nulled it. I'm speaking broadly here, but I feel like the people that nulled it did not crank the F out of their volume to hear what was really, 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 really down there. Now, could be
Possible,
wrong.
yeah.
But that's just an idea.
Did you ever hear that thing the guy did where he took recordings and did a DSD recording, and then he converted it to an MP3 and then brought that back in and then flipped them out of phase.
So you hear what's missing.
You could hear all this like
You lose reverb, you lose high end.
all kinds of shit. And most of the songs you can identify. That's what was so weird is you could pick out what song it was by the shit that it removed. And it was a lot of stuff. God.
Yeah, I don't even listen to MP3s anymore. It's I don't do it.
That's a funny thing in audio, man. It's like everything matters, but then it also doesn't matter, if the song's not great or if the song is great, who cares what you're missing as long as you get the song,
I just like that watery sound in the background when you get into the low bit rates. It makes me thirsty.
I mean, I'm with. Listen, I love clean, crispy audio, but at the same time, I was just hanging out with some folks, some higher up folks that we just spent the last 24 hours listening to MP3s or whatever 320s off of Spotify, and deals are being made. So that's like the push pull. It's like what am I supposed to give an F about?
No, the whole world's listening in MP3.
And then I've got
I'm listening to the song, not the audio.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever had a client that, of course we have, but a client that is trying to give you mix notes on headphones?
Of course.
And you're like, yo, that's headphones. But they're like, yo, everybody in the world uses headphones?
On specific headphones that they don't tell you how specific those headphones are.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
That's why I use the VSX headphones.
We all
Yeah,
love
VSX
those.
are nice.
We're big VSX heads over here.
Yeah, just shout out to Steven, man. He does this for everybody. I had the headband break on my VSX, and they just shipped me a new one, like super easy. And he does that for
fucking
anyone.
around. I was just down there last maybe 2 weeks ago with him, and we were working on trying to get more distance away because they sound exactly like the monitors. Nobody's arguing that, but there's still the distance. They don't sound like they're coming from far enough in front of you. But we figured that out, and the next release is going to be just fire. So man,
that's insane.
It's scary. I mean,
Can't
we were
imagine.
doing stuff. I was walking around the room, and I would kneel down and pick something off the floor while I was talking, and come back up, and you put the headphones on, and I could hear myself walk behind me and go downward. The sound would go down, and it was just scary. It was so unbelievable.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's got it dialed in. So man, it's just like it's it's so funny is it's Steven in this room, and then you've got like Sony with a whole staff of scientists and engineers going through all this stuff and writing all this software, and Steven's just sitting there going like, that doesn't sound right. Well, let's try this, and then he does the same thing. It's great. But he's got this new version is going to be just, oh man, it's so good.
That's how the best product is made, with people that actually use them, and just like you were saying before, like you actually use your gear and use all gear when you work. So it's like you're better to design it than just a tech.
Well, Steven hears. There's not very many people that I know that build stuff that can hear things. And when I work with Steven, we're sitting here listening to things, and I can hear stuff. I always have. My ears are really well trained, and he's like right on top of it. I've never worked with a plugin guy like him. He has a Frankenstein console that he uses when he does a plugin. I went in there one day and I said, hey, we should do a Dolby A encoder just for vocals. And he goes, oh yeah, that's cool. I've done that before. And so we looked it up, looked online, looked at the specs, and he started putting it together on this Frankenstein screen that he had. And we played with it until it sounded the same, because I brought one with me. And we just played with his parameters until they matched. And then he goes, all right, cool. And then he saves that file, sends it to his programmers, and they turn it into a plugin. And that's how he does it, and it's just, that's one of the reasons why his stuff does sound really good, and it's simple.
Nice.
Amazing.
It's all tuned by ear.
Yeah. How about that?
Do you know if they're going to, my only thing with that headphone, the wire pops right out.
They need to make a twist lock on that headphone.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Do you know if they're gonna add that? That would just put it over the top.
Just don't step on it.
I'm just always
stop reaching. Put the damn preamp.
I'd rather the wire pop out than the wire get crimped.
I have
right.
I plug it in and I just loop it over the top of the phone, or I just wrap it once around my neck, so if I fall, I die. And then. But I mean, yeah, there's a limit. The problem is you can't do that with the headphones. If you start putting a twist lock in there, then you end up, the cost will go up, and everybody go, "Why is it $100 more?" And everybody starts to get bugged.
And then everyone's like, why they got to make specialized freaking cables now? I can't replace it.
Right? Yeah, go to Radio Shack. Yeah. You can't do that anymore. Go to 7-Eleven now. You can't. You can buy a headphone cable, but you can't buy one of Steven's because it's got a twist lock and it got a code on it.
Right. I was gonna say that too. The cable is super replaceable, right? Just any aux.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem, is you gotta have a balance between that, and eventually now the next version of the iPhone is going to have a USB-C on it, because over the EU they just said nope, that's what we're going to have, because they had tired of everything going in the dumpster. Every cable that would break would go in the dumpster, and so people would have to keep buying the cables over and over and over instead of using another one they had. So they just mandated. It's just like, when California mandated the emission stuff, the whole country finally adapted to it. So that's what that'll be a nice.
Speaking of the EU mandates, did you guys hear about the iPhone 12 having too much radiation, so it's banned in France?
They walked that back.
Was it a myth, or was it just too much political stuff, or because I happen to have the
The
beautiful
12?
Model 12.
Same.
Is that why you're like that, Nico? That explains a
I
lot.
thought
There you
so
go.
too.
I was just gonna say, man.
You got a nice glow.
Too. There, I did
That-
feel a new lump back there. I just
A little radiation.
I thought I
Radiation glow.
I
fell.
think it was the
Your
placement.
ears are extra puffy.
The placement of the antenna was in a place that was different than they are now. But it's a transmitter. I mean, I got these in my ears. What is it? Magic? They're going to my phone or my computer? No, it's a transmitter.
Right.
It's transmitting RF, and it's going. I mean, there's a difference. There's ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation, and non-ionizing radiation are radio waves, and you get up to the point where you start getting to X-rays. That's ionizing. Those can affect you. Most waveforms don't, and even the 5G stuff. 5G is it's a phased array, and a phased array is where they can point it. Okay, so if you're standing right underneath an antenna, that antenna is putting out 1,000th of a milliwatt because you're right next to it. This is why when you go out in the country, you'd think, well, there's nobody out here, so my phone, the phone should last all day, and it lasts an hour. And it's because its transmitter is wide open to be able to hit that far away antenna. But when you're in town, your phone, if it's connected to a tower near you, it's hardly getting any RF, and it's hardly transmitting any, because the biggest expense of a cell phone company is electricity. So that's why these phones go up and down like that. And with the 5G thing, it tracks you, but not like there he is walking down the street. No, he just stepped off the curb. It's not like that. It's an area like this. So they can have multiple areas with the same frequencies. And it's funny because my friend of mine and I came up with that in the early days of the cell phone industry in DC. And everybody thought we were crazy, and nobody wanted to hear about it. So if we patented it, we'd be very rich right now.
Wow.
Insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's after 5G?
I think 6G.
Well, it's just more. 5G is a format, and it's just more. Is much more data. It's like when modems were 2400 baud. They said this is it. They can't go anymore, and then they started doing 4 frequencies and phase shifting the 4 frequencies, and they got to 56K. It's the same thing with that. It's just data compression and better data compression algorithms, and as they improve that, then you get more, bandwidth. You don't get any more bandwidth, but it compresses it and expands it, and then you get more bandwidth,
Crazy.
by default.
If you parallel compress your internet,
Yeah.
does that do
That
anything?
would be great.
You definitely
Get some more
get
bandwidth.
Absolutely.
Those are bold letters. Bold letters are parallel.
There you go.
It's bold, yeah.
If you really think about it, images are like multiple parallels.
Yeah, well, that's Yeah, it's
And-
funny, the whole phone thing. It's I go way back with all that shit. I was actually involved in a company that helped break up AT&T, so I've been involved in this shit for a long time.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's so maybe you know about this, Paul, but to answer your question, Fareed, I actually saw an advertisement for 6G. Whatever that, I don't know why or what it's actually.
All you gotta
for,
do is
but-
change the format somehow, and you call it 6G. I mean, the T-Mobile, where they have those straight lines, the purple lines that are flying along, and they say it's 5G, and they were announcing that before anybody had 5G out. 5G is real simple. 5G is a format. It's a square plate. It looks like the radiator of an air conditioner. That's a 5G antenna. If you see those long, thin ones, it ain't 5G. And they show those long, thin towers, and they go 5G, and it's like, no, that's not 5G.
Yeah.
It might be the format, but it's not the actual physical transmission format.
Got it.
Yeah, so if you look up on a tower and you see big square ones up there, those are phased array. Those are 5G phased array antennas.
Copy.
The other ones are not. They're just regular. They just blast.
When are we gonna fly like a G6?
I don't know, man. The minute we do, somebody's going to come up with a G7, so we're going to be screwed.
Then we're really gonna be screwed. Oh man. So
All about the interwebs.
let's segue to the next topic, which is okay, I guess we got what Paul's working on. What's everybody else working on? Dave, what you been working on for Reed?
Dave, you want to go first, or should I?
No, I haven't. Yeah, I'll go first. I do what I always do. I sit behind a console and just work my ass off every day. Next thing you know, I got a couple number ones. It's just that easy,
Yeah, that's right.
Ah,
right, Ken?
For you.
if only life were that easy. I love it.
Yeah, no,
Oh, we're blessed. We're blessed to get to do what we do.
absolutely, man. I was locked in with a producer for like a week, and yeah, we just cooked up. No artists, no vocals or anything. Just cooking up, you know. So that was a refresher.
Just tracks.
So,
Huh?
Just tracks, instrumentals.
Yeah, just instrumentals. He recently got a TR-808. So
Cool.
Oh, shit.
yeah, so it's like a combo of like bouncing
New
stuff out of
inspiration.
right, absolutely. You know, bounce out of FL and then line it up and then do some live tracking. It was fun.
What do you
That's
guys? You don't have to answer this question because it's stupid, but uh, how much longer is artificial intelligence going to not come to us musically? Right now, we got you know what do I call it?
Depends on the strikes.
that's a good point.
I mean, the writer
I think-
strike is over, but the SAG-AFTRA strike is not over. That's consequential for all of us, for sure.
That's I think they're starting to. I think what these guys are trying to do is they're trying to like a shh, don't say anything, and and all of a sudden it's like, well, if you can take the, like somebody's face and you can average, like take everybody's face on the screen and you average it out to a new face. Now you have a face that you can use in an ad and you don't have to pay anybody. And
Well, same with music.
yeah, and it's the same thing with the music stuff. And the thing is you can always tell there's a difference. I mean, it's like a drum machine that doesn't have a little bit of slip. But the thing is they're going to try to do it because they can save money, and so you've got to stop it, or at least get paid for it, beforehand.
But wasn't there a judge that ruled against? She said, I'm not sure if it was a she or he, but they said that any final works that was generated by AI can't be copyrighted.
Right. There's a bunch of writers that are independent, book writers that are independent from the writers' strike in Hollywood. The book writers that are saying
J.R.R. Martin.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them that are suing him right now because they admitted that they scanned all their books and they're writing new novels based on all those books. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, if I learn all your music and I come out with a new album and it sounds just like your music, Now I'll tell you, there's one interesting thing I got to tell you about the 808. There's one interesting thing about that. The reason that drum machine sounds so cool, as I took one of these things a long time ago and I put triggers in the back of it for a guy so he could play it live. And going through it, I was going through it with a scope because I had to figure out there's something about that machine that it sounds really good, So what it is that the drum sound, there's a drum sound, okay, but under the drum sound is this flapping sound that they blend in with the drums, and it goes, and it's mixed with the drum sound, and that there's a texture that it has that it sounds like a drum machine, but it doesn't. There's something about it that sounds nice, and you can't really pinpoint it, and it's this, and it's the flapping of the head of a drum, and they add that in, they mix that in with the sounds.
Oh wow,
it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. Nobody's ever gone into it far enough to figure that out and make another one. I mean, it's just like
Now we can sample Paul doing that on our show, and we can add that into our own drum sound.
We got to.
Good point.
So-
Good point.
You can imagine the
Well,
Japanese guy
Done and done.
trying to explain that. No. You mean, no.
There's another sample. Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Oh, high tom. We want low tom. Oh.
I got a whole kitchen. Stack.
I don't know anyone else's experience, but so far I've only heard of AI making it into a professional production that I've worked on in the lyric side. I haven't received anything to mix that was AI produced or AI voice. And that's just me. I'm saying you guys might have other experiences, but it seems like the lyric thing has kind of set in.
Yeah, I think we're still in machine learning. I think that we call machine learning AI just because we don't know better, but it seems like it's going to be a while off.
There's definitely. I feel like there's a gray area though, because like you got Lander, you got Aria. Shout out Aria and Colin, but you got these like mastering platforms that I'm not sure if it's AI that it's using, but it's using some kind of automation, and that's your final master.
They
So,
claim
is
AI.
the-
Lander claims that they're AI, but they're not. If you put the same thing through it 3 times, it comes back 3 different ways. But they do have a patent on cloud mixing.
Huh.
Yeah,
That's pretty interesting.
I did some research on that, and they have who knows if it would ever work. But the minute somebody starts doing it, they're going to go.
Yeah.
I'd like to mix some clouds.
I know that'd be cool.
That's best on a Neve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
well, of course, that goes without
Like
saying.
ribbons in the sky.
We can't record today. Why? There's no clouds.
That's
No
right.
clouds.
That's funny. No, it's an interesting subject. I mean, it's it's a new thing. It's like when synthesizers came out, or it's like when, anything. I mean, anything that comes out that plays back something. MP3s, or when the CDs came out, and I mean, they tried copy protection. They tried everything, and anytime a new technology comes out that upsets the norm, it has to be looked at, and it has to be regulated so it isn't abusive. And it's not just protectionism against an artist; it's trying to steal what that artist is doing, and that you've got to monitor. You've got to stay on top of that, because it's copyright. If you come up with song like this stuff that you just said you're working on, Fareed, you said we did like a bunch of tracks. Okay, so let's say you put them up somewhere, and somebody grabs them and listens to them, and it assembles like tracks ish. They're not the same, but they have that sort of a feel to it. Well, you guys did the research. You guys had the pain. You guys went through the arguments, and that doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. Speed it up, slow it down, and then they're just taking it and recreating something a little different. And that you can't. That's just theft. I mean, it's just outright theft.
I think the SAG-AFTRA strike is the best hope for the music industry to avoid AI. If SAG-AFTRA doesn't put serious roadblocks down that also spill into our industry, we don't have any unionization that's powerful enough to stop the music industry from doing exactly what the film and TV industry is deathly afraid of, which is scan us once, replace us forever, forget we ever existed. That shit is coming to our industry unless there are safeguards put in place. We're not powerful to put enough those. We're not powerful enough to put those safeguards in. But if SAG-AFTRA does, AFTRA is the vocalist union. So SAG is the Screen Actors Guild. AFTRA, the other half of that union, is the American Federation of whatever singers.
Right.
Well, yeah, and I think if the laws are written broadly enough, they'll spill over. But you're right; it has to be. I mean, if you're going to draw up a law, you've got to make them aware so they can just do that.
there's no law yet.
So all
Right.
I
Well, there isn't. But
I mean, it's only what the unions can extrapolate from, the powers that be and the roadblocks that they can put up. If they don't put up any roadblocks, there's no hope for the rest of us.
exactly. All I know is that I'm glad they tried to AI Drake first. So then obviously somebody with all the funding to fight back could make a big deal out of it. That's kind of how I see it. Which is great. It's like kind of natural to want to write a song for Drake or whatever immediately after this. Who wouldn't want to go for that? But having those as use case scenarios is like also another one of our best bets to like for the small guys too, because just like Paul said, what if we're not the top producers but we're out here busting our butts to make a whole couple records worth of material, and then it can just get copied by somebody else that's smarter with a computer. So I'm kind of glad that it's going that far that fast, so then we know and we got the right people representing or making commotion to right.
No, yeah,
well,
I
you've
agree.
got, anytime you're dealing with a legal issue like that, you got like in the early days of sampling, people were sampling stuff and they were getting sued. And I remember I was over at Tom Fly's house. I remember, if you guys remember Tom Fly, he worked at the record plant in Sausalito, did Tower Power and all those guys, Rick James and shit. He was a really, really good friend of mine. I was visiting him one time in San Francisco, and his doorbell rings, certified mail. He opens it up, figures he's, IRS notice, you know how we all are. And it was a check for $90,000. And it was from a guy who used a sample off of Lothar and the Hand People. And he got 90, then he got 45, then he got 20, and then he got 10, and then he got 5, and then that was it. He made $100,000 off of the sample, and the guys who did it figured they should do it up front because they're going to get it down the road, And so they had half that school. So half the school was trying to steal it, the other half wasn't. All it's going to take is it's going to be one guy who pays you a royalty to use your likeness into something like that, to bring light to the fact that there's awareness that it's wrong. And once you set a precedence of that awareness, it's hard to argue that it's not, because all somebody has to do is say, yeah. And you say, well, the thing about a computer, and this goes into royalties, it's like the old the argument with royalties. It's like Spotify doesn't pay a shit. Well, in the record, radio station days, radio stations might have a million listeners. So they play your song once, it goes to 1 million people. And they charge X number of dollars per ad, and then they pay you 10 cents for the song. But if you're number one song, you might get $1. You do that 3,000 radio stations around the country, you're making $3,000 to $5,000 a day, which is what a lot of artists used to make, playing their stuff on the radio. The difference is, and this is what people don't understand, is that they didn't really know if there's 1 million people. They didn't really know if there was 5 million people. They just do those contests where they do the scans and they give away money and they try to draw people in so they can say, we've got a 5,000 million listener base. So they can charge more in ads, but they got to pay more to BMI and ASCAP. Okay, now you take the exact same thing, take that over to Spotify. Spotify knows exactly how many people listen to your radio, your song, and they take the royalty base that's based on the same thing, which turns out to be, if you're paying $1 and you got 1 million listeners, that's a millionth of $1 per listener. They're paying 1,000 times more than that, but it's still not a lot. But if you play your song, and if your song's in rotation, it gets played 30 times in a day, that's 30 million listeners. Take that, and that's going to be just about the equivalent of what they would pay you from the streaming services. And those are the kind of things. But the thing about the computers the AI thing is if it's going to scan the information, it's going to have a list of the things that it scanned. So there's the evidence right there. They're going to say, oh, we listened to all Drake songs and then we wrote a Drake song. Well, sorry, but you can't do that. That's the thing about,
The worry is not that AI emulates Drake. It's that some record company exec figures out that, okay, well, if I tell AI to give me the flow of of Drake mixed with Kendrick, and then I want the lyrics of Kanye mixed with Rick Ross mixed with Lil Wayne, and I want the timbre in the range of, I don't know, somebody else. And I give it all of these parameters that make the AI create something completely undetectable from its sources, but it has drawn from all of those sources and now creates some dope as fuck new artist with some crazy flow and ridiculous lyrics. And it's a congregation of all of these other things. That's the fear of AI, not that it's going to emulate Drake or Kanye.
Well, that's true. I mean,
like
but that's you're simulating influence is what you're doing,
Right. But you're drawing influence from so many different things that you don't detect as the listener or as a legal entity where the influence comes from. You just know that, oh shit, now you have this super fucking dope new artist that nobody at first even knows is AI until like the second single drops or the single has been out for 2 weeks. And then the label makes it some huge novelty that it's actually AI and they fooled you all. And all of a sudden it's cool to be AI. I mean, this stuff is, we all look at it like it's going to be like some huge backlash against it. It's not. I mean, people are going to accept it because it's the cool new tech thing. And then it's going to become much more commonplace if there is no checks and balances put in, and then we're all fucked.
Well, it's like, but the same thing happened with drum machines, and so what happened is the drummers.
And how many drummers play on records now compared to the 70s?
Right, but also how many drummers learned how to program drum machines too? Because that's
not nearly enough.
No,
because
not nearly
all
enough.
of the producers did.
But one of the problems you have too in any technology, and I'm not offering this as an excuse for the the thing, but I always, when I teach, like at Blackbird, the last thing I say at the end of the day is the future is a train and it's running at 40 miles an hour, and when it goes through your town, you have two choices. You can get on the train or you can wave goodbye to the train. I prefer to get on the train and drive the train. And you have to make those choices. And in AI, you can't sit there like we did with MP3s and just let it fuck us into a hole. We have to get on it and stay on it and become part of it to control it. You can't just
it's either the people who can curate it the best, or it's the group of us that can gather enough strength together to stop it from overtaking all of our creative jobs. Or it's how do we best incorporate AI into our own creative process so that we can stay ahead of what the people's perception of the machines is.
If you even look at graphic designers and web designers, they're already pretty much out,
Done.
And where was the fight for that?
Coders,
like, the copyright infringements on images and stuff like that. I don't think there was any fight or legal battle.
Pretty sure I made this logo AI.
Right, and I think it pulls from everything on the internet, right? Just like ChatGPT.
Trees, man. You're going to get sued by trees. It's a tough one. I mean, it is.
Sure.
It's a tough one. It's going to have to be addressed. It's the elephant in the room. I mean, it's a big one. And because it has the ability to improve itself, which a lot of technologies didn't. I mean, drum machines were made by us, and we made them better and better and better, but we made them better and better and better. They didn't make themselves better. The AI thing, that problem is it learns and it collects and it indexes, and it has this plethora of everything. And the deeper and the higher and the wider and the rounder it gets, the more information it's going to have to draw from. And then that information is going to get diluted to the point that you won't be able to trace any of it. And it will be an issue.
Exactly.
But I do think that there are instances where you can tell, and I mean, for schmaltzy music,
Right now.
background music, right now, right. But I still think there's still going to be that live performance. Then I think it's going to come back to live.
Right
I've
now.
seen a big resurgence of gear because I think plugins, I said this on a few episodes before, but I think like every plugins are so accessible. So like I see a lot of people like, trying to get converters or, like the special, like the tube EQs, stuff like that. And I think it's just to stand out or, just to be a little different. And who knows, like maybe that might happen.
Well,
I think it's super important to have a great recording chain, but
I think you find that in costing, though. If you're trying to sell your studio time, there's only so much you can get per hour if you've just got a screen and a mouse and a monitor. If you've got some outboard gear and stuff like that, then all of a sudden,
if you have credits,
so and
that's
true.
Same with
there's
racing,
a company that will allow you to film yourself. Let's say you're sitting in a chair where you would address like a YouTube video, if you were going to make maybe explaining something. So you film yourself, you turn your head, get all these angles, and then you sample your voice to this app. And then from that point on, can AI your voice off of a text you just type with a moving likeness of yourself that was filmed. So it's not like animation looking or anything like that. It looks like you, the same picture you took sitting at your desk. And that's what's one of the other aspects of AI is when an artist can type their rap in, sample their voice, and then they never have to work again. They just, and that's probably a gross exaggeration, but at some point the effort will become so little that music isn't a creative exploration of get in a room with a group of people and get this song done and can we make it better and let me re-record that because today I know the lyrics better. All that goes out the window if this
except
gets
for live
so extreme that it's just amazing.
I think you're gonna say let me punch that guy again.
What's that?
They're talking about punch again. Now we're going to be punching out. I do think that's true. And I think what's going to happen is that a live performance of a play, of a band, of a singer, of a magician, of anything like that, live performances are going to start coming back. Look at the Dome. I mean, there's an example right there. That wouldn't succeed if people were content with not seeing it. But people now want to see things because they can hear everything. And I think that's what's going to save us. But you're going to have to be willing to tour.
Yeah, I've noticed a huge comeback with tours and shows. And I mean, especially after the pandemic, everybody's sick of being inside.
Yeah.
Except
we all had to wear clothes.
We got to hope that people don't want to follow and support and get behind a completely artificial artist that has no human as the artist,
There's a black mirror about that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's true. There's going to be people that don't give a fuck. I mean, this is one of the problems with music is it's become background music to a lot of people. My daughter, when she danced, she didn't listen to the lyrics. Some of the lyrics were, you couldn't play them around kids because the parents were actually listening to the words. The lyrics just went right through her. She was dancing to the song, and I mean, those are but music became background music to her. And that's one of the things that we've lost with music is the presence of the humanities. So I think there'll be some for, playing music on the radio and background music and shit like that. I think AI is going to be there, but nothing is ever going to take away from one ticket, one person in a venue. You can't simulate that unless people get into, holograms and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's gotten so expensive.
Yeah, no more bring your cooler on the lawn shit, man. It's messed up.
When the sphere becomes self-aware in Vegas and starts to murder everybody,
starts rolling down
the
wakes up road.
Dude, that thing is huge. It's like the size of a stadium. That thing is enormous.
Well, the one in Dubai is supposed to be bigger around in that, and it's going to be the entire moon.
That's
It's
nuts.
going
I
to be
heard of
like
that.
the
That's nuts.
entire, like, it's going to be the same thing, but it's going to be up on a pedestal.
And they're
I
building
mean,
a whole
I just
city
want
out
to,
there.
I just want to
The
go in
line.
that thing and just fart
Into a
and
mic.
just watch everybody 360 degrees.
That would be great. That's a dream, man.
Yeah,
Dream.
Bucket list.
a fartalist.
That would be epic.
Well, you better copyright it.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I'll sample it.
Okay.
Before AI takes it.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Milli Vanilli thing did show that you can't do that long. You can't do that forever, and you know. But that whole thing was put to rest by somebody in charge, because I don't know if you saw the last performance they did where it started to skip, and you go, "Oh my God, it was skipping and stuff." And say, just stop for a second. What mediums were out there in those days? There was no hard drives. There were no CDs. There was nothing that would skip that was recorded that way. And they played it back, and the engineer either knew or the tape was substituted. But they had to put an end to that because it was out of control, because the guys won a fucking Grammy. And so it went beedle-a-deedle-a-dee, deedle-a-deedle-a-dee, deedle-a-deedle-a-dee. There's no medium on earth that skips at that increment. So somebody put an end to that.
Well, back then, people lined up at record stores on release day and cared about artists. So that's where I think the danger is people could accept an artificial artist with open arms. That's what I would not.
And did.
I would not like to see that happen.
Yeah, that brings me back to the Drake point. That whole Drake weekend mashup, whatever, it was a myth or whatever, but there was a meme going around viral that it was being considered for a Grammy. So that's what I mean by, like,
I heard about that.
luckily it was a very popular act that had the interest of whatever to push the needle and be like, okay, here's a new standard. Because with that, like Paul mentioned, since I forget his name, but the head of the Recording Academy came out publicly the next day and was like, hey guys, listen, that's not happening. Like, we're definitely making a rule. No computer generated stuff can even be submitted or whatever. So that set a precedent. Right, that set a precedent to now everybody kind of is like, they know that's not going to be accepted, or it's morally wrong, or so the whole industry kind of shifts towards doing the right thing or whatever, kind of like Paul mentioned. So
well, they're not going to shift to do the right thing. They're going to be forced to do the right thing. They're not going to go, oh my God, we can't fuck people. Oh shit, we need to stop this right now. We all need to stop this
do
ourselves.
the right thing.
Yeah, that'll never happen. But no, it is a call to action. I mean, you got to stay on top of this shit. You can't let it go like they did MP3s, because all the record companies were going like, I remember the guy on Warner on television, he was saying, well, we're more interested in content. We don't really think this is a threat. And it was like, if I was a record company and that guy came out with Napster, that guy would have either been bought out or dead the next day. But they let it go, and they let it go because they downplayed it, just like they're doing now. They're downplaying, but the people downplaying it are the people that are making sure that they downplay it enough so they can sneak it in. So you got to stay on top of that shit. And it's not a conspiracy. It's the real thing. You got to stay on top of it. And not having a Grammy for something that wasn't done by a human is a good step. I mean, that's something, but that was an artist stepping in. It wasn't somebody going like, well, we need to do the right thing. Because I think if the Grammys hadn't had the problems they had over the last few years, they probably wouldn't have done that. But they knew that they got to get on the stick with this shit, because they let shit happen before and it bit them in the ass. So they've got to stay on top of it, which is good. Yeah. So
What do you guys think of? So, not to segue too much, but Fruity Loops they just integrated the stem separator. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But Rip X was doing it and like Serato. So I'm slowly seeing different DAWs, and applications adopt it.
I
I'm
use
sure
How
Pro
many
Tools is
stems
going
I
to be
does
the
use
this
it
have?
all the
last.
time. I mean, I use RX10 all the time. I did a live thing with Jim Messina that I purposely put people on tracks together because I knew that RX10 could separate them because I didn't have enough tracks.
Crazy.
So I mean, it's cool and it works really, really, really well.
How many tracks does FL separate?
I'm not sure. I think it's like the drums, bass, vocals, and like
But the drums
melody.
was
I
a
think.
mix.
Isn't RipX doing like 7 to 10 stems?
Yeah, and I know there's different versions for Rip X.
Well, in
Like you
Pro
get
Tools,
the
the new Pro Tools
exclusive.
doesn't have RX built into it.
Oh, does it?
I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere.
As a ARA thing?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And there's one online as well I've been using quite a bit. It's drum roll AI. Drag and drop your song in there and it splits it out in like 30 seconds.
I'm gonna change my Instagram
Crazy.
name to Bob AI. Go with the time.
You gotta have the dot. Yeah,
Oh, of
Bob
course.
dot
Dude, if
AI.
you do that now and you get it, you're going to be legendary for all time. Bob.ai.
AI is the same thing as when you see a van driving and it says their business since like 1846, and that's bullshit.
Yeah, right. Or collectively, we've got between us right now, we've got collectively 150 years of experience.
That's right. Oh, I love seeing that. It's like, really, you have 280 years of experience?
I have a ghost in my house. A plant just fell over.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Or you have a
It's
cat
an AI
that's
ghost.
hiding.
That is an AI ghost.
Yeah, it's an AI plant, and it didn't knock over; it jumped.
Right, of course.
Because of the pressure it's feeling, it committed its own suicide. Well, you saw the guy that has the Chat GTP carries a briefcase around with him, and it's a football. He can open it up and shut the computer system down from anywhere in the world. He says if it gets too out of control, he can shut it up.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and I thought, oh, okay, yeah, right, yeah, that's what that really does. But apparently, the guy has that fear himself.
That's
Hey,
crazy.
let me
Actually,
create something. I've got an idea. I'm going to build something that can fuck everybody, and I'm just going to let it go for a while and just see what happens. And then, but I do have this little briefcase that I can turn it off if it gets out of control, And then the next thing you see as a
How
bus,
could you not?
it takes the guy out, and that's it.
yeah.
Where's that briefcase?
Yeah, where's the briefcase?
Or you see some like
It's a new mission.
you see some like Mexican drug lord holding like a chopped arm with a briefcase.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh well.
Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour and a half. But guess what? I took the label off the water bottle. That means we're official. Whatever that means.
It's an AI bottle.
Exactly. Now you can AI model it, AI bottle it.
Can we do non-sponsors on this show? Like, can we just go? We are not sponsored by Arrowhead.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't know how that works, but let's take a second to open the floor to anybody that wants to shout out gear that they've been keen on lately, or just stuff that you like. I'll obviously start with the given Dutch and Dutch, as you see a lot of Dutch and Dutch speakers here on the screen. Shout out Dutch and Dutch. They sound pretty darn good.
They do.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Fuck yeah.
I've been liking the new Ozone 11, to be honest.
I haven't gotten that yet.
Not the assistant stuff, but just the fact that many more modules let you address the transient or the sustain of a sound, and I found that pretty useful.
Nice. Yeah, I just mastered Grizzly Adams' third album on the Dutch and Dutches and mixed the Jungkook Lotto Nightfall remix of 7 on the Dutch and Dutches. But also, big shout out to all of the AES Latin America folks that I was just down in Quito with last week. Boy, that was a lot of fun. All hard work during the days and cut loose during the nights, but there was a lot of really engaged students down there that were really hungry for what we do. So it was a nice environment.
Amazing.
So it's amazing. Like, how is AI going to take over when there's millions of people that want to do this? You know?
Right.
People at the
I
top
do
don't
feel
want to pay us.
Yeah. I'm not saying we won't lose all the money for it, but
I do feel like now we're stronger than ever as an audio engineering community in terms of like numbers. So I don't know if that's a thing
Who's going
that we
to
should take
AES New
advantage.
York?
Yep.
I'll have a booth
Sweet.
to make our big announcement.
Ooh.
Yes.
Ken, are you going?
I'm planning on going to AES New York. Yes. Are you guys going?
Yeah, Nico, are you
I'll
going?
be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be there.
Should we do a broadcast from there if we're all going?
I think that's what Lou had planned. Yeah.
Well, we should definitely do that. Fuck yeah.
That'd be amazing.
We're going
That'd
to
be
rock
fun.
and roll it.
It'd be good to see all you guys.
Lasers for Paul.
Yeah, lasers, man. Hearts,
Hearts and lasers for Paul.
and a
I
thumbs
got to
up.
check out some of this fixed audio gear now.
Hey, I make the only analog Atmos console in the world,
What?
and I sold 4 of them.
Whoa.
And when you hear, I'll tell you what, when you hear a mix that's been done on one of my consoles versus with all objects, it's the difference between like paste and really, really good smelling.
Oh man.
Hmm.
I'd love to hear that.
You can kind
Paul,
of,
I wanted to ask you
yeah.
real quick. I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you about the box console. Did you have anything to do with that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting because in the early days when I came up with the first summing mixer besides Dangerous, and I came to those guys and I said, hey, we should do this. And they weren't interested in it. So I said, well, do you mind if I make them? Because I got a bunch of people that want them. And they said, I don't care. So as soon as I did that, they started getting phone calls. I want some of these. I want some of these. So we came out with the 7600, the 8200, and that little mixer thing, and that kind of turned into the box with some of my old Echo return modules as input modules. And that's where the box came from. I didn't design it, but it came out after me. But it was basically all the stuff that I had done. Most of the stuff they have in there, most of their modules and stuff were still the base designs of what I did. They might have added a blend control or the thrust filter and the compressor. The 200 stuff is now 500 stuff, but it's pretty much everything that I did when I was there. I really don't have anything really new. The 1608 was kind of like a legacy with wider modules and kind of packaged, sealed, everything ready to go in a box so you could just plug it in and use it. Didn't take an installation to do, which was a really smart idea. But it's their stuff is the same. The same with Tonelux. They're still selling the same thing I did then.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Well, there's a lot of people that disagree with that.
Paul, you have a fairly new 500 series preamp. Is that correct? The Sunset or something like that?
Well, we took the original Sunset Sound mic pre, the dual 991 that they had in the main console and in the Studio 3, and they had some floaters, and so we took the floater and we thought, well, we should make a 500 module out of this, and so we did. And it's
sick.
Yeah, it is dead on to the originals. I mean, we really went to the extent of the transformers and everything in it. And it's a sweetheart, man. It's just really, really nice. We had Joe Ciccarelli listen to the floater and, every version that we've come out with of the other one, and he'll use them in overheads, and he says there's just no difference. So we've succeeded in reproducing that original. And it's a sweet mic pre. I mean, it's got a little bit of low end distortion in it, but it's just, the phase shift is just razor blade flat. The distortion is just razor blade flat. It's just a great, and there's never a pad. there's enough headroom in it that you don't ever need a pad, so you never disconnect the transformer from the mic with a resistor load.
Huh.
So yeah, it's a sweetheart.
My intro to Paul Wolff was 1998 when the Legacy Plus was installed at the Sound Kitchen.
Oh yeah.
And that's when I discovered the API 2500 and how awesome that thing was.
That was something that I locked myself in the basement, and the only person that ever had any input into that compressor was Shelly Yakis.
Oh, wow.
And he was the one that told me it needed a release knob instead of switches. And then he told me the story of Go All the Way by the Raspberries and how they rehearsed that song for weeks, and they went in and they recorded it, and it was awful, and they had to mix it because they had a deadline. They took it to the record company, and they were just going like, not so much. And they went back, and there was a couple Roger Meyer compressors in the studio, and they patched it through that. Of course, they turned all the knobs up all the way, played back Go All the Way through it, and the assistant in the room had the wherewithal to record it, because they were all, by that time, they were half crocked because they were so bummed out that the record got basically tossed. And they came in the next day, the compressors were gone because Roger took them back, Roger Meyer, and but they had the tape, and they listened to the tape, and the compression bounced along with the song, and it turned that song into this like electric dance song that they took it back to the record. Well, we remixed it, and they go, man, this is the #1, and it got released, and that was the rest was history. And they brought the compressors back, and they had a different release time on it, and never had the same feel with the song. So he said, always have that release control so you can make it bounce with the song. And we did, and I did. That was the first time anybody did feedback or feed forward, and that was a big thing. That was really cool. And I went one step further with the Tonelux EQ, and I could actually blend the two, which is really nice. Having feedback and feed forward together, it has a nice, very soft. Yeah,
those Tonelux compressors were some of the first hardware ones with a mix knob as well, right?
Yep. Yeah. Mr. Innovator.
Literally, man.
I have a blend control on every channel of the console.
Wow.
Insert and then a blend. Every one of them.
Paul, who's your favorite Atmos mixers?
Ronald Prent.
All right.
His stuff, everything Ronald does, when you listen to it, you just want to just stay in the middle of it. It doesn't matter if it's like a play or an orchestra or a metal band or whatever. Every song that he puts, and a lot of it has to do with the console, the fact that he's not using objects. They're actually panning between snapped speakers, so you're literally panning between them. It's a lot less phasey information when it gets rendered. And so when it plays back very much like you were in the room. And there's nothing in it that bothers you, and it just sounds fucking enormous, dude. So yeah, he's really one of my favorite mixers. He just makes stuff sound so good.
How do you get to the ceiling speakers on the console?
With the floor to ceiling panner.
Oh,
there's 7 pan pots on it: left, center, right, front, side, rear, floor, ceiling, and quad. And if you want to do 6 in the ceiling, then you send it to a couple of sends, and then they can put those in the ceiling speakers. Yeah, you can pan anywhere. I can pan a guitar from the top left speaker right through my head to the right rear speaker, just like you can with an object, except there's no phasey information that's bringing it through you. It's just linear.
Wow,
and
that's
it
awesome.
Sounds so nice.
That's insane. That's some next level stuff. Dave, it's gonna
it's
gonna be hard to top that. Dave, you're using any new plugins lately? Any new cool gear that we should know about?
Tubes. What's it called? Magma tubes. I like that one. And what else? Man?
Rack Attack.
Oh yeah, Rack Attack.
Rack Attack. What's that?
It's a
the Mixland one. I haven't checked that one out yet.
Yeah, Backrack, which was
Backrack.
Oh, Backrack Mixland. Yeah, I've been hearing about that.
Vac Attack? I think it's Vac Attack.
Vac Attack, yes. Mixland Vac Attack.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, I used to have the real one, and this one's pretty good. What else? Oh yeah, there's another one. It's called Sub Bloom. Um, uh,
That's Jesse Ray Ernster's plugin, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, Jesse Ray. It's really good. All it does is allow you to get really, really, really sweet, clear, nice, low end. It doesn't go. I don't know how high it goes, but very low. And I use that a lot. I really like it.
Definitely some stuff that I want to check out. They sound really cool. Yeah, shout out Plugin Alliance. Shout out Jesse Ray on that new plugin for sure.
Yeah, it's really good. It's real good.
Dude, that's epic. Well, we'll bring this show to a gentle landing.
Fade.
Yeah, gentle fade. That's a great analogy. Again, big shout out to our sponsors. Thank you guys. You know who you are. You see the gear. We use it every day. It's no cap. It's pretty good shit. But big thank you to Paul Wolff. Thank you for stopping by, sharing some genius. Big thank you to all my co-hosts, Dave Pensado, legendary, Bob Horn, legendary, Fareed, legendary, Ken. No, I'm just kidding. Extra legend right there. Man, another amazing episode in the books. Faders of the Lost Art.
Don't forget to share, comment, like, and subscribe. And see you next time on Faders of the Lost Art.